And he said, I'm going to play a tone, and I want you to mentally hum that tone. And he said that you will eventually feel a connection. The line will change. When I saw the sine wave move, I went, oh, okay, well, there's a mental disconnect there that's not supposed to be happening. That this is not possible.
Our guest today is an Air Force sergeant who worked at the highest levels on classified projects in electronics and signals intelligence for the United States government. We have thorough documentation of his military records. His service is not something you can really argue with, nor is his mental health.
This is the most nonchalant conversation I've ever had about alien telepathic communication.
In this exclusive long-form interview, retired Technical Sergeant Dan Sherman claims that while serving in the Air Force in the early 90s, he was recruited for an extremely classified program at the NSA, or National Security Agency. This program was called Project Preserve Destiny. Project Preserve Destiny's purpose? To telepathically decode alien signals for the NSA. You heard me right. Alien signals that seem to telepathically transmit descriptions of alien abductions across the United States. Alien signals that ultimately gave our very curious guest answers about the very nature of the alien presence on Earth, how these beings travel, how they conceive of time, what they think about humans, and much, much more. Dan Sherman was originally told by the Air Force captain who read him into the program that he was given this telepathic ability by the aliens themselves when they abducted Sherman's pregnant mother in the early 1960s and altered his genetics while he was a fetus in her womb. This genetic blueprint would allow him to grow into what the NSA would dub an intuitive communicator.
With the IC communication, you can feel it in your brain. You can feel, now you can't localize it. It's not a localization, but I can feel like it's in that area of my brain right there.
Whoa.
And
Sherman believes the NSA may even have tracked him since childhood into his young adulthood and military service until he was finally read into the program.
Do you think that the NSA or powers that be know that this interview is happening?
Because of the extremely sensitive nature of this NSA program and its ties to black programs, Dan tries to abstain mentioning which bases this Project Preserve Destiny was conducted at. But my researchers and I were able to locate one of these bases, and I bring it up at the end of this interview, catching Sherman a bit off guard. Not only that, but at the end of this video, we explore an independent researcher's use of the Freedom of Information Act to learn more about Project Preserve Destiny. He sent a request to the government to see all of the files on it. As you'll see, both the Air Force and NSA's responses to his request are fairly telling. The point is, the skeptics can have at it, but this case isn't going away. It's very hard to dismiss. I'd argue that Dan Sherman's story is one of the most important UFO legacy program-related accounts we have to contend with. So sit back, relax, and prepare to have your worldview crumble with this week's very courageous American alchemist, retired sergeant, intuitive alien communicator, and UFO whistleblower, Dan Sherman.
Different parts of the brain have different activities.
Well, you know that, don't you?
Maybe you should interview me.
Dan Sherman, thank you so much for being here. This, for me, is a dream come true and has been a long time coming. I've read your incredible book, Above Black, and it documents an experience that, to me, is so fascinating. It's kind of, in some ways, high strangeness. It doesn't comport with a lot of the other stories. And so that, to me, that is like the perfect combo of like what I want to investigate, because you seem like a really cool, lucid guy. And then you're talking about being an intuitive communicator, you know, downloading signals from aliens for the NSA.
Yeah.
which is pretty amazing.
Yeah. It is. And downloading is an interesting description, but it definitely was. You couldn't see it, so it looked like it was downloading. Yeah.
Or decrypting, or I don't know. Yeah. So
Receiving, I'd like to say receiving, but
receiving.
yeah.
Okay. Why do you like to say that?
Well, downloading kind of denotes some sort of machine, or we associate downloading with bits and data, and it wasn't like that. It was just a thought.
Yep.
It was a thought that came. So I just trying to keep it organic as opposed to machine related.
Yeah.
And I know we got, in the book I talk about machines and how I interface with the computer and all that. So there is a machine component in my training, but after that, it wasn't really much of a machine. So
Right. Well, why don't we take things back to
Sure.
your childhood? Where'd you grow up?
Grew up in a lot of places. Between kindergarten and 12th grade, I went to 27 schools. So
27 schools.
Yeah.
What was the reason for that?
we just moved a lot. My dad was a welder, and we were very, very poor, and just went with the wind. And of course, I had step parents, and I went to live with my grandma and my aunt, and there was a lot of broken home type situation too. So I was going from one place to another all the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
It
there
was-
was no sort of military brat dynamic?
No,
Your dad
no.
was just a welder?
Yeah, no, there was no military component.
Interesting. And you just even being here today is sort of unlikely, right? Because your mother was having trouble giving birth for
Yeah.
a long time, and
Yeah.
you were kind of an anomaly?
Yeah, the doctors, she had an accident when she was like 10 or 11. She fell off the tailgate of a pickup truck, and her sexual organs were messed up, and the doctors basically said she'd never carry a baby to term. And she had many miscarriages, but I was the only one that I like to say I was the only miscarriage that came that lived. Anyway, so it was definitely an interesting correlation, I guess, to the story after I found out about what I found out about. Kind of correlated as like, well, maybe there was some protective angels there somehow. So,
Yeah. Well, everybody listening now should put a pin in what you just said
we
because
can't get ahead of ourselves,
we
right?
can't. But there are some very interesting details to come about your mother. So what made you want to become Air Force Electronics Intelligence?
Well, we managed some horse stables in Yuba City, California, and we had a person who boarded their horse there, and he was a major in the Air Force, and he was a SR-71 pilot. And of course, that fascinated me. Here I am, a fourth grader, being able to interface with somebody who's been on the news, that met President Carter, that he was like a hero to me.
Mhm.
And we would talk. I remember conversations with him when we were watching his daughter ride the horse that they were boarding. He would tell me about flying in the Air Force. And as a kid, you get enamored with stuff like that, and it stuck with me. And so I definitely wanted to, and I was very patriotic as well. So I really wanted to do something in that realm, which is serving. So it kind of came all together when I was in high school. And
Were you interested in tech or electronics or
I was
signals
always,
or
yeah,
anything like that?
I was always interested in technology. And of course, in 1974, when I met him, technology was a color TV. There wasn't really any technology per se, just science fiction and Star Trek and, all that type of stuff. So I was definitely interested in that. But as time went on, yes, I became more and more interested when tech became more advanced, and I'm definitely a techie, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so how long did you serve just generically?
12 years.
Okay.
12 years. I was in the Air Force for 12 years.
Okay. And where were you stationed?
I was stationed in Korea, Italy, Colorado, North Dakota, Nebraska, and Texas for a while. And I went TDY, of course, temporary duty for my schooling at Fort Meade at the NSA headquarters, and Philippines and Japan. So I went a lot of places.
To the crazy skeptics out there, would you be able to produce like a DD-214 or like your service record?
Yeah, I can.
Different parts of the brain have different activities.